There's one truth you never knew about Mel Brooks. He wasn't always the laughing genius we saw on screen. For many years, he kept a secret blacklist. 6 actors he promised he'd never forgive. These were famous people, friends, and even family members. They helped make him a legend, but then they tore him apart. And the third name on that list? That was the betrayal he never got over. Let's find out the truth, and you won't believe what the third actor did to him. Number 1. Richard Pryor. The Fire. He couldn't hold Mel Brooks once said that making Blazing Saddles almost destroyed his friendship with Richard Pryor. And he wasn't making it up or exaggerating. Their fight was legendary. It was raw and emotional, and it still hurt decades later. Here's what really happened. Richard Pryor was supposed to be the main star. The role of Sheriff Bart was written just for him. He helped write the script, sitting in smoky rooms for many nights, creating lines that would shock all of Hollywood. And he did exactly that. He made racism look silly and stupid, turned bad words into jokes, and gave the movie its sharp edge. But when it was time to choose the actors, Warner Brothers Studio called Mel into an office. They said 3 words that changed everything. Not Richard Pryor. They were scared of him. His drug addiction, his angry temper, and the fact that nobody could predict what he'd do next. Pryor had already burned bridges in Las Vegas. He had canceled tours, and he was constantly in the news for using cocaine. Mel begged them to think again. He promised he could keep Richard focused and working hard. But the studio said no. They wouldn't change their minds. They replaced him with Cleavon Little instead. When Pryor found out, he absolutely exploded with anger. He accused Mel of betraying him. He thought Mel hadn't fought hard enough for him. "You let them take my movie away," he told Mel. The friendship cracked and broke right there in that moment. Pryor stopped returning Mel's phone calls. He would tell friends later that Hollywood stole his biggest chance at success. And he said nobody, not even Mel Brooks, had the guts or courage to stand beside him and fight for him. Many years later, when someone asked Mel about Pryor, he didn't deny any of it. "He was like fire," Mel said quietly. "I wanted to hold it in my hands, but I burned myself instead." They never truly made up or became friends again. Pryor's genius and talent lived on in the film's words and jokes, but his face was completely erased from the screen. And that, to Mel, was the wound that never healed or got better. Number 2. Madeline Kahn. The woman who broke Mel's patience. The second person on Mel Brooks's secret hate list wasn't a man at all. It was a woman who could freeze an entire film set with just one look. Madeline Kahn. Everyone thought she was his muse, his inspiration. But in truth, she was the one who made him lose sleep, lose his temper, and almost lose his mind completely. It all started on the set of Blazing Saddles. Mel said she was absolutely perfect until the cameras started rolling. She questioned every single line, every gesture and movement, every prop on the set. Once, when Mel told her to deliver a scene faster, she smiled sweetly at him and said, "Then you should write faster dialogue." The crew burst out laughing. But Mel didn't laugh at all. He stormed off the set angrily and refused to speak to her for hours. But when he came back and watched the playback of what they filmed, he realized her version was actually better. That was the problem with Madeline. She was always right, every single time. Madeline had this dangerous combination of elegance and stubbornness. During the filming of Young Frankenstein, she demanded a different camera angle. Her reason? She said Elizabeth wouldn't want to be shot from that side. Mel groaned and complained, but eventually gave in to her demand. Can you guess what happened? It became one of the most iconic and famous close-up shots in comedy history. She could turn complete chaos into beautiful art. Their fights became legendary throughout Hollywood. She'd show up late to set, change her lines without asking, and even stop in the middle of a scene to adjust another actor's facial expression. Mel once said, "Madeline directed half of my movies. She just didn't get the credit for it." He absolutely adored her talent, but working with her drove him completely insane. By the end of filming History of the World, Mel admitted she'd aged him 10 years, but she also made him immortal and unforgettable. "I hated working with her," he laughed later, "because she always made me eat my words and admit she was right." Number 3. Anne Bancroft, the wife who made him sweat. Now watch closely. The third person on Mel Brooks's most loved and most hated list was Anne Bancroft, his own wife. Yes, the Oscar-winning star of The Graduate. The woman he adored and loved for over 40 years also happened to drive him absolutely insane when they worked together on set. People always thought they were Hollywood's perfect golden couple. Funny, loyal, and unstoppable. But behind the camera, when they were filming, it was like a battlefield and a war zone. When they shot the movie To Be or Not to Be in the early 1980s, Anne didn't just act in the movie. She practically rewrote the whole thing. If a line of dialogue didn't sound real or believable to her, she'd call him out right in front of the entire crew. That's not how a woman would say it. "Mel," she'd insist, with her hands on her hips and her eyes locked on his. He'd try to defend himself and his writing, but just one glare from her, and he'd crumble and give up. The crew used to joke around and say that when Anne crossed her arms, even the lights on set dimmed out of fear of her. Mel once said, "She was the only actress who ever made me doubt my own script and my own writing." And yet, every single argument and fight led to something electric and amazing. Their fights were like creative duels and battles. She wanted honesty and truth. He wanted chaos and craziness. Somewhere in between those two things, they found brilliance. When they were off the set, away from filming, they went right back to being inseparable and perfect together. Tea, laughter, and home. But the moment that camera turned on again, it was war all over again. Mel called her the toughest, smartest, most terrifying woman I ever loved. And that's exactly why he could never forget her, not for a single day. Number 4. Gene Hackman, the serious actor in a silly world. When Mel Brooks talks about the absolute hardest day of filming Young Frankenstein, he doesn't mention the jokes or the special lightning effects. Instead, he talks about Gene Hackman, number 4 on his hate list, and the only man who could make Mel question whether comedy was even worth doing at all. Their clash and conflict started the very moment Gene walked onto the set. He'd just won an Oscar award for The French Connection. He walked in with this serious, heavy presence, and he treated Mel's silly monster parody movie like it was Shakespeare. During rehearsal, Mel cracked a joke about how the blind hermit character should accidentally burn himself. Gene didn't laugh even a little bit. He just stared at Mel and said, "Why would he burn himself? That's stupid and doesn't make sense." The entire room froze in silence. Mel, trying really hard to stay calm, replied, "Because it's funny, Gene." Hackman shook his head. "Pain isn't funny," he said seriously. "That was only day 1 of working together. From that point on, it was like a quiet war between them. Gene wanted meaning, structure, and control over everything. Mel wanted chaos, instinct, and laughter. When the other actors would improvise and make things up, Gene stayed stone still and serious, waiting for his cue like he was in a courtroom drama. The difference in their energy levels was absolutely exhausting for everyone. The real explosion happened when Gene asked for another take, the 12th take in a row, because he felt the soup didn't feel honest enough. Mel finally snapped and lost it. He slammed his headset down on the ground and yelled, "It's soup, Gene! It's not Kramer versus Kramer!" The crew broke into nervous laughter. Gene didn't move a muscle. He just said quietly, "Then maybe I'm in the wrong movie." He was in the wrong movie, and he never came back to work on another Brooks film ever again. Years later, Mel admitted that Hackman's performance was absolutely flawless and perfect, but the process of working with him nearly broke Mel's spirit. "Gene was brilliant," he said, "but he made me feel like I was directing a serious courtroom drama instead of a comedy." The funny thing is, that blind hermit scene became iconic and famous. It's proof that sometimes the very best laughs come from the most unbearable and difficult days of filming. Number 5. Cloris Leachman, the actress who wouldn't obey number 5 on Mel Brooks's secret hate list was the woman who scared him more than any studio boss ever could. Cloris Leachman. The day she stepped onto the Young Frankenstein set, Mel realized something important. He wasn't directing her at all. He was negotiating with her. like making a business deal. Cloris had this quiet kind of power. She didn't argue loudly like Madeline Kahn did. Instead, she just disagreed calmly and relentlessly, over and over again, until Mel's confidence started to crumble and fall apart. During the very first scene where she played Frau Blücher, Mel asked her to play it funny and silly. She tilted her head to the side and said, "Funny is cheap and easy. I'll play it true and honest instead." He laughed, thinking she was just kidding around. She wasn't kidding at all. She performed the scene with the intensity and seriousness of a tragedy. Her eyes were blazing, her movements were sharp and precise. The crew watching didn't know whether they should laugh or shiver with fear. Mel yelled, "Cut!" and muttered under his breath, "We're making Frankenstein, not Macbeth." But here's what drove him completely crazy and insane. Her version actually worked perfectly. Every single take she insisted on doing her own way ended up being the exact one that Mel used in the final movie. She had this uncanny, almost magical instinct to go against his direction and still come out right. And that made him absolutely furious. On the set of High Anxiety, she pushed even harder than before. She questioned every single line, every prop on set, every emotion and feeling. Mel said it was like being cross-examined by a lawyer in my own movie. If he told her to say a line faster, she'd stop and ask him why. She wasn't trying to be difficult on purpose. She was just being Cloris, brilliant, stubborn, and impossible to deal with. Their tension and conflict became legendary in Hollywood. She once showed up on set wearing the completely wrong costume, on purpose, just to prove that the wardrobe note and instruction was wrong. And guess what? She was right, as always. Mel later joked, "Cloris made me a better director by fighting me every single day of filming." He didn't hate her because she failed him or let him down. He hated her because she never ever let him win an argument. Number 6. Dom DeLuise. The man who drove Mel crazy with laughter last on the list, but the one who tested Mel Brooks's patience more than anyone else was Dom DeLuise. He was the only actor Mel ever said he loved to hate. Their problem wasn't about ego or control or power. It was about laughter. Uncontrollable, infectious, spreading laughter that was deadly for every single take they tried to film. From silent movie all the way to History of the World, Dom simply couldn't get through a scene without cracking up and laughing. He'd laugh at other people's jokes, at his own lines, and even at the sound of Mel yelling, "Action!" Once during the filming of Spaceballs, Mel tried to give him direction and instructions. Dom literally slid off his chair because he was laughing so hard. The entire crew had to stop shooting for 45 whole minutes. Mel was absolutely furious and angry. "I can't direct him," Mel said, frustrated. "He's dying of laughter before the joke even lands or finishes." At first it was funny and entertaining. Then it became complete chaos and a disaster. Dom's laughter was so explosive and powerful, it ruined entire takes and scenes. He'd fall out of the camera frame, cover his face with his hands, gasp for air, and send the entire camera crew into hysterics along with him. Mel tried absolutely everything to fix the problem. He tried facing Dom away from the other actors, shooting him separately by himself, and even banning any eye contact between him and Madeline Kahn. Why? Because just one single look from her would completely destroy him with laughter. But nothing worked at all. And yet, despite all this trouble, Mel couldn't fire him. Every time they somehow managed to get a clean take without laughter, it was pure gold and brilliance. When he finally stopped laughing, Mel admitted, he was absolutely brilliant and perfect. Nobody in the world had his timing for comedy. So Dom DeLuise was truly Mel's biggest nightmare on set. "He made my movies twice as long to film and twice as funny," Mel once joked with a smile. So, which name on Mel Brooks's blacklist shocked you the most and surprised you? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section below. Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, because Hollywood still has so many secrets we haven't uncovered yet. There are more stories waiting to be told, and we're going to bring them all to you.